Wow, it has been a while since I've last recorded a video for this channel, and there's actually a really good reason for that. You see, this bike behind me, that's not the only new addition to the mountain road family. Yep, this little guy has been added to our family in the last few months, and he has surely kept us busy. That is the truth. Alright, but I figured I want to put this video together today to walk you through this new bike that I've put together. It is in fact my very first frame up build. First time I've taken on this project to take a frame and basically build a bike from the ground up. The way this bike actually came together was really through some panic buying on my end. You see, throughout COVID, I did go into a bit of a worry state, thinking that we'll never see anything like chains, cassettes and derailleurs, shifters ever again with all those supply chain shortages. And so at one point, underneath this desk, there was a whole pile of parts. And I took a look at it, it's like, hang on, that's just about a whole bike. I'm missing a couple of pieces. Handlebar, a saddle, a bottom bracket, and of course the main thing, a frame to just build up a whole bike. And so that is what you see behind me right now. And I'm going to walk you through in this video, take you component by component to show you what I've put on this bike. I think it turned out really nice in the end, and I'm very, very pleased with how it all came together to make up this bike. Alright, so obviously the first part of this build is the frame, and when I set out to look for a frame, it's actually a bit of a reverse. I think a lot of people start with the frame and then they buy all the components to fit to that frame. For me, it was the exact opposite, and I needed to look for a frame that would play nice with all my existing components, some that are taken off from other bikes and some that I bought specifically for this build. Now, I needed a couple of things. I definitely wanted 12-100, 12-142 through axles. I wanted a round seat post. We'll get to that in a minute. I wanted flat mount disc brakes. I also wanted lots of tire clearance. It needs to run a chunky tire setup for me. This is a 650 by 50 millimeter setup. More than enough clearance on that. That's what I wanted. And then also one area that I got particular picky in, I wanted a threaded bottom bracket. I've had my fair share of frustrations with the press fit system, and yeah, so it was just a no-brainer. When I saw this, it had threaded bottom bracket. That was what I wanted. That is like music to a home mechanic's ears to see that on the bike, and it's just been a dream to work with from the get-go. All right, so with that out of the way, the next thing was obviously, will it fit in my budget? Now, I would have loved to have a titanium frame. That is obviously a future dream of mine. But when I discovered this State 4130 all-road frame and fork set at a price of $430, it was just an absolute, yep, that is what I need to get. And it provided the perfect canvas for me to fit all my existing components too. Add to this the fact that this frame comes with a ton of mounting options. You've got so many mounting options there on the fork of this. You don't have any problem fitting anything from fenders to a rack, both in the front or in the rear to this frame. And that's exactly what I'm going to do with it. This is going to be my workhorse frame that I can now easily strap anything to, go bikepacking, commute to work, just riding around town. Basically anything that I can think of, I am going to use this bike for. That is what it's been built for, and I am really looking forward to put it to the test over the next couple of months. Okay, so first off, I think a shining star for me in this particular build was the brake calipers. That's something somebody would normally say about a bike build, but I pulled the trigger on the Growtac equal brakes, and I have not been sorry at all. This is a phenomenal brake set that's on this particular build. So easy to install. The fact that it's just based all mechanical, no hydraulics, no silly brake kits, nothing like that. Just a wire that you're running through to the brakes has been so easy to work with. I'm going to do a separate video on that in the future, but I am particularly happy with that purchase. Now, judging by the fact that these things are sold out online, I can tell that a lot of people are actually catching on to how good these mechanical disc brakes really are. Honestly, they rival, and I would even say exceed, the performance of my hydraulic disc brakes. Now you're only dealing with a cable actuated system. Your shifters open up a few extra possibilities as well, and that's where these shifters come into the picture. This was one of my panic buys during the pandemic and the supply chain shortages. It should have been a backup set for my road bike, and the fear that I would never see another set of shifters for road bikes ever again. I pulled the trigger on the Shimano R8000 shifters, and oh boy, they are just still to me the pinnacle of mechanical shifting. Really love them, and I got them on a great deal on Amazon. So very pleased I went with these particular shifters, and they just play so nicely with the Growtac equal brakes. Alright, so the next standout feature on this bike has to be that seat post. Now, this is one of the main reasons that sort of kicked off my process of looking for a frame, because this is another part that I got on a really good deal. There was a holiday sale going on the Cane Creek's website, 40% off on pretty much all their products on their website. So I've got 35 millimeters of compliance in this seat post, and this is also why I needed a frame with that 27.2 millimeter round seat post, so I could fit something like this on the bike. Really been enjoying that one so far. It also offers you the option to kind of swap out some of the elastomers in there that offer that suspension. I bought the softer one, comes standard with a medium elastomer in there. So maybe down the line I'll swap it out and make it even softer, because so far I haven't had any of that saddle bob that so many people are afraid of when they look at a product like this. Moving on to the wheels. Now, the wheels is not something that I bought specifically for this build. It's actually a wheel set that I've had for quite a while already, 2+ years, and I have put it through its paces. If you want to see some of the rides that I've done with this wheel set, take a look at my Rockstar Gravel Ride of the Week. There's also the Pontani, Gravelocity, all those Gravel Ride of the Week videos you can find on this channel. Crazy conditions that I've put this wheel set through, and it has held up phenomenally well. This being the Hunt Mason 650 Adventure Sport wheel set. Again, another product that I think offers tremendous value for money. Comes in at under $500 for this wheel set, and it has just stood up to the test of all the various challenges that I've thrown at it over time, and I can really highly recommend that wheel set to anybody looking for a very capable and durable, affordable wheel set. Now, add to that, obviously, the tires, and within those tires, there's also a tire insert. So for that, I picked the Cushcore inserts, and they have done a phenomenal job over the last few months with me riding them. Now, add to that, a very trusty tire that I will also highly recommend to anybody looking for a very capable all-round tire. And in fact, I've done a review of both this 650 by 50 millimeter Pirelli Cinturato Gravel M tire, along with also the slightly slimmer version in the 700 by 35 millimeter. And you can find both of those reviews on this channel as well. So Pirelli Cinturato Gravel M 650 by 50 millimeter tires fitted to this bike. Now, in case you're wondering, and I was curious when I started this build, what is the biggest and widest tire that I could fit into this particular frame set? On their website, they claim that you can go up to a 650 by 53 millimeter tire, but could we squeeze in just a little bit more? So I went ahead and tested a 27.5 by 2.3 inch tire, full-on mountain biking tire on this wheel set, and I think you can see by the pictures right now that it clears, but it's extremely tight. So if you're willing to go with maybe a 1 or 2 millimeters of clearance, yes, you can squeeze a 2.3 inch tire in there. but it might just end up damaging your frame if something gets lodged in there. Right, so let's get to the drivetrain. Now the drivetrain is a bit of a mix of components, some that I had and some that I bought during that panic buying phase. One of them being the Shimano GRX 812 rear derailleur. This particular derailleur, if you were looking for a gravel group set throughout COVID, you would have seen that this one, that GRX 812, was pretty much nowhere to be found. That being the one by specific gravel derailleur in the Shimano lineup. And when I saw it pop back up on the online retailers' websites, I was one of the first to get that purchased. Now after that, the Shimano road shifters that I've got up at the front and that 11-speed system just plays together so very nicely. So for the drivetrain, we also need a crankset. Now that's nothing new. At one point I was upgrading my crank from my 3T Explorer from the Praxis Alba to the Praxis Zayande Carbon, and that old crankset was sitting in my drawer, so I decided that would be the perfect fit for this group set. Now, if you notice a little something on the pictures that I'm showing you, is that this crankset has had its fair share of wear and tear. And so I came up with a clever way of actually just spicing things up. Nothing that a bit of 3M vinyl tape cannot fix. I think the end product actually looks pretty nice. It just gives it a bit of protection, number one, and also gives it a bit of facelift to make this build look much nicer, as you can see in the finished product right now. Now add to this crank the 36 tooth wolf tooth chainring, coupled with the 1142 cassette in the rear, and I feel like you've got a very capable gear range that can take you over a wide range of terrain. Alright, so then just the last few things to wrap up this build. That being the handlebar and also the saddle and the stem. Stem I had lying around, that was in my pass bin. A very nice Zipp service core stem that went onto this build. For the handlebar, I picked the Ritchey Venturemax handlebar. Love this setup. I think it has everything I need. Very shallow drop. 24 degrees of flare is just right for me. Not too super wide. Does push out the drops just enough to give you that stability in the rougher terrain. I do like the bio band that they've put into this particular handlebar. So when riding in the drops, you've got a pretty nice stance there as well, and the grip that you've got with that bio band. One last component to wrap up this build is a very neat WTB Volt Saddle. I've come from a WTB SL8 saddle over to this one, and I can see why this is a saddle that is selected for so many mountain bikes out there when they put stock saddles on the mountain bikes. Alright, so just the last few little details that I'll point out on this bike build. I did end up going with a bit of a cable management up front just to make that front end and the cables look a little neater. Also, a very nice little addition to the handlebar was one of the bar plugs. I did end up going for the Corky mirror. That is a bar end plug that flips up and flips down to reveal a very small mirror, but it comes in super handy, especially since I'll be using this bike as a commuter bike a lot. So just having that small mirror at the end of the handlebar, very a nice addition to it as well. I also ended up going with some of the cherry cable ends at the brakes specifically, just to make that a little easier in the future to service the brakes, and then also a bit of protection strip along the chainstay to give it a bit of protection from chain slap should I go over rougher surfaces. So just a few minor details here and there to give it a bit of a final touch on this bike build. And that wraps up the build. That is my new State 4130 frame with all the various components that I've had, a mix of some new ones, some existing ones that came out of the parts bin, and at the end of the day, I am really pleased with how all these parts came together to create this bike. Alright, so with that, thanks for watching, thanks for staying tuned in. If you like this type of content, be sure to scroll through this channel. There's plenty more to go through, and also be sure to hit that subscribe button if you want to see more of this in the future. Until then, enjoy your ride.